Going to play is Albad. It's a song for the sunrise. I'm sorry? Oh, trumpet tune. I'm sorry. Trumpet tune. Trumpet tune. Heaven forbid they'll fire me. It's trumpet tune, and you can see we don't have any trumpets, but we're going to sound like some.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a pleasure to be back here again. We usually talk about our instruments later in the program, but I thought maybe this time we'd introduce you to some of our unusual instruments early in the program. And most of you have seen these big instruments. How many of you haven't been to one of our concerts? Okay, so we've got some newbies here. We have some instruments that you usually don't see in concert bands or orchestras. These are our harmony flutes. These are the instruments that play low notes. And these instruments here are contrabass flutes. And I'm sorry. These are our contrabass flutes, and they're 4 times longer than our C flutes. Raise your C flutes. These are the C flutes, and they're 4 times as large and about 4 times as thick. And these are known as our heavy metal members of our ensemble. Can you play a scale going down from C down to low C? And they can even do one more note. Thank you. The next instrument that we have in our ensemble is kind of our tenor voice. And these are our bass flutes. And you can see that they're not so big that you can't hold them as long as we put some bends in them. If you'd be so kind, these are an octave below our C flutes. Can you go ahead and play the scale starting on a C down, please? Nice mellow sound. And finally, the other instrument in our harmony group are our alto flutes. Can you be so kind just to raise those, please? And you'll see that some of them are straight and some of them have curved joints, and it depends on how big the player is and how long their arms are. If they have short arms, we bend the head joint so that they don't have so they hit all the keys. And if they've got relatively longer arms, then they can have a straight flute. Would you be so kind just to give us another demonstration, starting on your C's and going down? Fingered C. And we weren't going to demonstrate that, we don't hear enough of them during the concert. And if you'd be so kind as that everybody, the people who have their piccolos, raise them high so they can be seen. And of course, most of you recognize piccolos from the solo in the Stars and Stripes. We aren't doing that. So, the next concert work we're going to play, I think most of you have heard. It's called the Little Norwegian Suite. It is by Edvard Grieg, and I think you'll recognize some of the early three movements. I think you'll recognize them.
Let me tell you a little bit about this group. It started about 26 years ago in Marty's music group. There were 6 flute players. I was one of them. The other 5 have all gone on to other things. And it has just grown and grown and grown. Marty, we call him Marty. He's technically Dr. Melachari, a retired neurosurgeon who has a very marvelous skill for arranging music. You'll find that many of the pieces we play, he has arranged them just for flute choir. So he has many, many talents and has kept this group going. I was in this group for 25 years, and you know, with maturity and arthritis and some of those fun things, sometimes the hands just don't want to do what you want them to do anymore. So anyway, they let me hang around and talk to you about the music. So thank you for letting me do this. I appreciate being part of the group still. The next piece is one that possibly you all know. It's the Teddy Bear's Picnic. If you go down to the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. I think that was the way the first song went. It was written by a man named John Bratton. He wrote a lot of music around the turn of the 20th century. He did a lot of things, but this has been his most popular piece. There have been over 21 recordings of it by people like Bing Crosby. You remember Bing Crosby in here? Many of the people who have recorded it, it's always a favorite. So that is the intro for the Teddy Bear's Picnic.
Periodically, because our members frequently have to change instruments, in a full-size orchestra, you don't see them tuning after every piece that they play. But we unfortunately trade instruments in and out, so we have to periodically tune to be sure that our instruments are sounding as best they can.
What we play is technically called a transverse flute. So one of the flutists who writes a lot of music, Judy Nishimura, writes a lot of music for our kinds of groups. She wrote something that's called transverses. And, you know, you get to play on words. But she also wrote, she also included some little snippets of poems in the style of Ogden Nash. So this is transverses, played by the transverse flute, and with the poems written in the style of Ogden Nash. The first one is called Dizzy Jig. The second is called Lip Gloss. The third has to do with technical problems when you are playing the flute. Sometimes it feels like a cat that has walked in syrup. The final one is Quicksilver. There was a leprechaun who always danced and played his flute in the hallways. His tone didn't please, but when he would sneeze, his high notes were just like James Galway's. He whirled and he twirled and he spun. So many turns had he done that he was so dizzy and in a great tizzy, for his jig was over before it was begun. There is nothing so lovely or with such allure as a perfectly formed flute embouchure. Your lips should clamp down, said a friend with a frown. A clarinetist who really disagreed. But I would contend that the sound that I send is better, and I don't need a reed. need pads. The gods of embarrassment always humble me whenever I play Flight of the Bumblebee. I try to be oh so careful when playing Mendelssohn's Scherzo. I flail and I fail, and the question pops into my head. My flute is made of silver. Why are my fingers made of lead? Was one of the first we ever played on a concert. It was written in 1979 by a Japanese composer. He had I can't pronounce his name, Ryohei Hirose, I guess. It's close to that. He was a professor at the University of Kyoto in Japan, and he wrote pieces for many, many different kinds of instruments. But this was the only thing that he ever wrote for a flute choir.
my wife happens to be in the military. My wife happens to be in the military. Culver Daughters is a military school that my sons went to. And it's a combined school that not only has the men's portion of the military school, but adjacent to it is a girls' school as well. And so the Culver Academies is a co-educational foundation and school. And it so happens that at the graduation, in their baccalaureate, there is a very fancy ceremony that goes on. The girls are all dressed in these white, beautiful dresses, and the men are in their fancy military uniforms. And in the ceremony itself, there's this piece called Culver Daughters, which was composed by the organist at Culver Academy. And it was so beautiful that I thought it would really be a good piece to be played by our flute choir. And the Culver Academies has given us the rights to use this piece as a flute choir piece. So I present for you Culver Daughters.
And I think you will recognize the tune.
You've all been such a wonderful audience tonight. I hope you enjoyed our program. We have one more piece for you, our encore. And it's, do any of you recall having reed organs in your households? Back in, a lot of families used to have them. Sorry, harmonium, reed organs. Anybody know what they are? Yeah, okay. Well, they were instruments that sort of replaced the pipe organ. There were obviously churches and houses that couldn't afford to build a big instrument. So they had these instruments run by air. You used to press on pedals, and then you played. It was like a keyboard. But I happened to find this harmonium piece, which I thought would be a nice encore for our program tonight. We hope you'll enjoy this. Thank you once again for being our audience tonight. We hope you enjoyed the program, and we hope to see you again sometime in the near future.